Hello everyone. Today I'll be in this seminar I'll be talk little about the framework Rasa, which is used to build a chatbot, intelligent chatbot. I'll be talking some of the components inside the Rasa project, and we'll make some working prototype, very small but running in the cell. So let's get it started. This is the basic architecture of message handling in Rasa. The message from user will get in, and then there is an interpreter which will track it. So once the message is tracked, it goes for the different policies, and once from the policy it will be decided which action to take. So once it decides the action to take, then we'll send a message back to user. So this is a very broad architecture, but there are so many components involved inside. Today we'll not go into all those components, but some basic components. So this is one thing, and the other thing we have to know is, from any user message, like in the Rasa, every message typed by user is classified as one of the intent. So let's say if you say, I go to University of Texas, then you're trying to tell where you go, so you can classify that one. If you say I'm hungry, you can classify that whole thing as the same thing. But sometimes what happens is user can include two or more intents in a single sentence, and there are ways to handle those circumstances as well, but today we'll just handle one intent at a time. So for intent, that's the basic information. And for entities, so entities are more detailed information that you have to extract from that message. So in the case you say, I go to University of Texas at Arlington. So University of Texas can be institution, location, so many things. So in Rasa you can decide yourself like what you want to classify this as. But before we go that, let's see in Spacey how. So there is this example where they have shown one Sebastian Trun. So if you select person, it will select all the entities in that paragraph. Let's say if you wanna select quantity, right? And year, cardinal, money. So you see how what I'm trying to say is that's how we will also try to implement in our model. So now let's move to the command line. Hope everyone has installed Rasa. So if you have installed Rasa version 1.1.4, so you can type this command Rasa init no prompt. So this command will create whatever it is necessary at the first step. So inside my directory chatbot seminar, on my left I have open in Atom, and right now it's empty, but once I hit this command, so okay. If you do pip install Rasa, it should. Let me do this. Rasa init no prompt. initially when you run this command, it will create sample data for you, some sample data, and it will train the model and get the trained model inside our project. So if you see here on a left on data, we have nlu.markdown and stories.markdown, and initially we'll basically discuss on nlu.md, stories.md, and domain.yml. So if you go to nlu.md, this is the place where you provide some of the initial training data for your project. Once you hit that command, right, it will create all these files. So wherever you are.
Okay.
I would suggest to make a directory and then under one directory.
Understood.
And then if you have Atom, it will be just easier to go back and forth. Can I proceed? So, okay. Now, let's discuss some of these things. So, inside this nlu.md, we have some examples where, the intent is defined as greet. Hey, hello, hi, good morning, good evening, hey there. So, these are different ways people can greet to each other. I mean, there will be a more, but this is the one provided by it. So they have included greet, goodbye, affirm, deny, mood great, mood unhappy, those kind of things. Now, let's move to stories.md. So in the stories, you will include how the conversation will flow. So for instance, happy path, so the greet is the intent of the user, and then auto greet is whatever you want to reply for greet. Some people can say good morning, good evening, it depends on the designer. And mood great, if user says I'm happy, then the bot can reply something. So for now, there are 1 2 3 4, we'll include some more on this one. So this is where you will include all your stories. So each of these happy path, sad path one, those are all individual story and makes stories.md. Now let's go to domain.yml. Initially there are 3 things here: intents, actions, templates. So one thing you should be really careful while designing this framework is you need to include everything that you have included in nlu.md. So what I mean is, there are 5 intents initially, right? So in intents, we need to mention all these 5 intents. For actions, so actions are whatever the bot will take, so you need to mention here. Now there are auto greet, auto cheer up, auto did that help, auto happy, auto goodbye, and there is one more, templates, right? So that's how you define. So basically this is the basic architecture. And in this domain, so basically the domain is the word of the bot, so the bot needs to know everything that it gonna face. So now we have all this. Now what we can do is, now before moving to other this files, credentials.yml, actions.py, endpoints.yml, let's try this thing. Let's see how we can reply to this one. Let's say we go to one of these stories, right? And then now from the command line you can type RASA and see all the commands that are available in this one. So So these are some of the commands. The one we used was Rasa init. Now we're gonna use Rasa run, Rasa cell, Rasa train, those kind of things. So anytime you make any changes to your data, you need to retrain your model. So in order to do that, you just type Rasa train. But in our case, we haven't changed anything, so it shouldn't really train the model. So it says nothing changed, right? So now let's see what we can do with the Rasa run. So basically it will run your server so that like you can interact with the chatbot. And this will be more used when you want to deploy in some web servers or in app websites. So but now let's see let's visualize some of the stories we mentioned. So if you type Rasa visualize, we can see the graph. Okay, so this will come very handy when you want to know the flow of the conversation. So and here you see start and end. So on blue, hey, so basically whatever you provided in your training data, it will randomly select one of the sample training data. So this is great, auto great, and very bad, see you later. Those are all replies by bot. Training data that we included in nlu.md. And so that's one of the way you can visualize how your like whole conversation is going. Now in order to see like sample conversation, you can do Rasa cell and it will run the conversation in the command prompt. So let's say we want to say hi, right? Now it says how are you. So in all path, I think except the say goodbye, right? We have said that greet, and then auto greet. So if you see here, everything we say. So let's choose something where it says let's say mood great. So I am feeling happy. Okay, so now if you type anything, it will just stay here. So one of the way you can solve this problem is there is a default action where you can just go to stories.md. Make sure your bot gives some kind of reply with all this.
Mine isn't getting any reply.
What this is?
Okay, then put.
Because see here, because you started with I am feeling happy, right?
I did hi too.
No, it doesn't show there.
It seems that you have to type it exactly as it is.
Yeah, initially like you can provide different information, but for now we'll just go with this one. So let's say, okay, let me stop this one. Do you want to try it again? So for now, try to follow this paradigm. For now, just type something.
It is one of the by at the end of the story. Okay,
It doesn't respond to hi. Did Rasa shell again, and then I did a hi. It didn't respond.
Do you want to try Rasa train? Are you sure you have all these folders?
Yeah.
Can you go to your stories.md?
Yeah.
Do you see everything?
Yeah, in transactions, tablets.
Did you get by?
Is it giving reply to you, Dr. Park?
Oh yeah, it works for me.
So yeah, it's okay.
You start with high, then
Maybe we could check it out.
No, I'll wait because we'll be changing, we'll be creating other conversation as well.
I think there is my opinion, but something is crashing. Do you know Conda environment?
I did it in bit. So
Did you create a clean installation using Conda environment?
I did it using bit.
Pip?
Yeah.
So
I
You-
installed both.
so do you know Conda environment?
No, I haven't done.
Do you know virtual environment?
Yes.
So Conda has something similar to the virtual environment. We call Conda environment. You might try creating a new virtual environment and do a clean install.
So in okay, so in this analog.md, try to include examples where like user will misspell some words, right? When user types, it's not guaranteed that they will type it perfectly, right? Even for good, like some people may type god as well, right? So we need to be careful what we're gonna include in this data. So
Do you have a Conda? How did you install this?
I'll do this.
So you did not install
Conda. I just installed it.
Spacey.
I installed this.
How did you install without?
With following these instructions.
So you install the Spacey without it? Okay. Okay.
okay, so one more thing I want to show you here, like they have different accents. So like whenever you do Rasa cell, and then you type hi, right? I'm good, and then if you type something, now it won't, like if you want to get in the loop to restart it again. So what you do is go in the stories.md, and then here if you want to like after this conversation, if you want to restart the conversation again, then you just type action restart and save it. And now what we're gonna do is we're gonna stop this one. Now retrain your model as again with the command Rasa train. And now if we do Rasa cell again, it should restart the conversation again. So let's say hi, and then I'm good. So previously it didn't give us anything, right? Now I can say hi, and then now you're, so basically, like depending on your project or on your requirement, we need to include this one, and this is very handy. So now let's move to the other part. Now let's stop it. So now let's include something, like after this one. Let's write some kind of conversation, like user hi, and then Bart, let's say, what do you wanna go with? Any conversation?
Hey, how are you?
Huh?
Hey, how are you?
That's great. Something specific to your requirement. Huh?
How can I help you?
Okay, how can I help you, right? And then you just say, let's say the user in restaurant, right? You wanna say, I want lunch. I mean, you can say I want sandwich, other things, right? And Bart will say, like, so I want lunch. So Bart will say, like, what do you want for drink? Let's say, okay. Do you want a drink? And then again, user will say, let's say Coke, right? And then Bart will ask again, what kind of sandwich? Let's assume they have some kind of sandwich. And then user will say something, chicken. Okay, so on this one, let's try to relate this thing. So hi will be intent, so everything here will belong to one of the intent, right? So hi will belong to intent grid, and all these intents we define ourselves, nothing else. So how can I help you? That's great, right? User so user says I want lunch. So what do you wanna call this? Ordered food. Okay. Now what do you want for drink? So let's say this is drink, the intent, right? No, not this one. This drink. Everything for the user. So, and then chicken, so that's sandwich type, let's say. Now let's try to make this conversation running for our bot. So now let's go to the intents that we need to include. So this is our training data, right? So let's go to intent. What we have, order food, right? Order food. So go here and try to include some kind of conversation that you can think of. It doesn't have to be exactly the same like mine. Like some people will say, I want lunch. Some people will say, I'm hungry. Some people will just say hungry, right? Some people will say, like, I need food. Food. Okay. Food. Now let's include the other intent, where this will tell what kind of drink you want. Drinks, let's say some examples can be, like I want Coke, water, give me just water, and it's very good to include different ways of asking questions, so it will have a broader understanding. Now let's include the other intent that we need. So the other intent is sandwich type, right? Type. So some people will say just chicken sandwich. Some people will say grilled. And it's totally fine to include how this wrong spelling is used. Grilled chicken. Some people will say roasted beef sandwich. Some people will say, like give me chicken. Okay. So once you do this one, right, now you go to the you go to the domain.yml, and then in the list of intents you include the newly added intents. So the newly added intents were drinks, sandwich type, right? This type, and make sure these are same. And what was the other thing?
Put a cheese.
Huh? Drinks, order food. Order food. Okay. So that's the first step. Now, like, let's decide what we're gonna say to user. Right? So we can use the same grid here, right? For the stories here, I want lunch, and then what do you want for drink? So we need to reply this for otter. So the convention is to use otter, right? Otter asks drink. So you go to and write the text you want to write. So text can be, what do you like to order for the drink? So that's one of the thing. And the other one is otter asked sandwich. Let's type, and then so what do you want for sandwich? Okay. So once you include your auto template, you need to include this thing in the list of actions. So now go ahead and add in the list of actions where we're gonna say we added auto ask drink, and then auto ask sandwich type, and then what else? I think that should be it. Now let's go and go to the stories.md, and we can call this anything we want. So let's say this belongs to, you know, like order food path. Now, so we said we're gonna start with the user grid, right, the intent, and then what we said we can so auto grid, I believe there we have something with the auto grid. Yeah, how are you, you know, like, so let's say we have already there, so auto grid. So the next in the flow is order food, right? Food, and then bot will say what do you want for drink, right? So that's gonna be order ask drink, and then so order food, and then what do you want for drink? So for that Coke and thing, what did we decide? Okay, once he says drink, so the user gave the list of the drink, and then we're gonna say after the drink we're gonna say order sandwich type, order egg sandwich type. Okay, now for now let's just try to run this one. So let's go to the command line, do Rasa train to train your model again. And usually if we have some kind of errors, or you know, like if domain doesn't have the sufficient information about everything, then we'll have some kind of errors. Okay, and once you train the model, I want to show you something in these models. So on your left, if you see here, there is models, right? So anytime you train your model, it will be creating new models and list everything. So sometimes one model may be better, but now you have your model saved. So, and whenever we hit this command Rasa run or Rasa cell, you know, it will use the latest model. So now so since it is already trained, let's do Rasa cell, and so let's say hi, right? Now for this one we are going specific to this last story. So now how are you, right? So order food, you know, let's say I'm hungry. Okay, and if you type something different instead of I'm hungry, you know, like something will break here, because in this framework how everything works is, based on the user input, it will classify that intent to one of the intents. So sometimes it will have the wrong classification, so there are circumstances where we need to handle that with the default questions, like like I didn't understand your questions, or can you rephrase it and restart again, or like maybe you don't want to restart again for the whole conversation, but keep track of the 5 conversations before and then start from that one. So for this one, let's just try. What do you like to order for that ring? Let's say you want to say.
Can you explain it again? I mean, you mean a flowchart, a particular flowchart is following? What do you mean by when it breaks?
So let me stop this one for now. And now if I do Rasa feature wise, okay, so before we go there, like found unknown intent drink. So here while visualizing, so somewhere we have missed, at least maybe I have missed somewhere to mention that unknown intent drink on line
So
30.
you need to change the line 35 drink to drinks.
On 35 on the domain, okay. So line 35 found online drink on line 35. Somewhere I missed it, so maybe NLU drinks. Okay, there is drinks. Okay, drinks. Thank you. Okay, skipping. Okay, no. Order arc sandwich type. Okay, so this one instead of this one I should have. Okay, now if I do Rasa visualize and I get no errors, then okay, now so these are the, so let's say you started with high auto grid, right? Now instead of user saying, now you are in this hungry thing, right? Now you replied something, I want Coke or something, but now user gave me, instead of saying I want Coke, if the user says, I want banana, I want those kind of things. So those kind of things are not in the domain of your bot, right? So in that case, we need to handle the conversation. One way is instantly we can ask, I didn't understand what you said, right? And go through the very first beginning, like restart the whole conversation. Or there is this feature in this framework where we say fallback policy. I'm not sure how it's written, but there is this feature where you just go, like if you are here and you didn't get it, just follow up these 2 previous conversation and then continue with that one. So we can do that. But now the thing I was explaining, and this will make sense, because like every sentence is classified to one. So let's say you have this intent 1, right? These are our intent, right? So intent 1, intent 2, intent 3, intent 4. And now in the stories there is certain flow of conversations, but now if you in the middle of like let's say 1, then something, and then the 2 something, now you are expected to 3, but the user gave the intent, let's say something, you were expected to get the intent 3, right? But the user gave the intent 1. Now there should be a way where we can control this one. Am I clear? And we can handle that. Wait. So I mean, so far it looks good, and let's try this one. So what I'm saying is, let's try our cell. Let's say hi, right? And then I'm hungry. You see, somehow like it went to a different thing, right? Because I didn't type I am hungry. So you need to like try to incorporate those wrong spellings in your training data. So let's stop this one. Do I need to try it again, or you want to try it? Yeah, let's move to some other feature. So let's go to our domain. Now in your domain, like everything the chatbot is replying until now is defined in author grid in these templates, right? But there will be circumstance where the bot has to get access with API or do some kind of calculations and return to the user, right? I mean, like we want to make it more flexible. So how we can do that? So if you go to this action.py, so this is where you can define, what are the other actions this bot can handle. So if you comment this one from to this one, I mean uncomment this one in the actions.py, and here it says, we have this class action hello world, but the name of the real name of the action will be action hello world. So we need to give this as well. So go to your domain.yml, and in actions, by the way, in this actions.py you can add different type of actions, okay, not just this one. This is just one sample dummy example. Now there is this return action hello world. Now go to the domain, and on your list of actions add to this one. Now save this one. So basically the first function is saying the name of the action, and the real calculations happens in the second function. So if you see line 25, dispatcher.author message hello world, right? So instead of hello world we can change to anything, and you can do add subtraction or call API of any websites. You can do that thing here and incorporate it. So now once we go this one, we need to go to this. So once you run this, save this one, you need to run the server for this action. So the command is action Rasa run actions. Now is it working for everyone?
Why nobody is answering? Is that working for you?
So the command is Rasa run actions.
Yeah, it's working for me.
Now if you see on the bottom, it says action endpoint is up and running in 0.0.0, so, and the port number, right? Now by default it runs on port 5055. So a lot of times, the default, I don't know why, sometimes the port number will be same, right? But for other program as well, so they run on the same port. So let's the way to change to different port is, so same command and then dash p gives some other command 5060. Okay, so now it's running in port 5060. So now this one is done, and this one is done. So let's go to the other file where we need to configure that it is running in this port number. So the way to do that is go to the endpoints and endpoints.yml, and on line 13 you have action endpoint equals to http, and then so uncomment this line, action endpoint, and on this URL you will be saying 0.0.0.0 and then 5060. Okay, let's say this one. So if you see here, there's all the descriptions as well, so you can go through this one, but let me go somewhere here in credentials.yml. So we'll not be using this one, but I just want to let you know that if you are deploying your bot in Slack or Facebook Messenger or in the website, whenever you are using website, you need to configure this on your socket.io. So for this one, so have you ever made a bot in Slack? If you want to go, there is an article in the HDI journal where it says get this token and that thing, so you can follow up if you want to make any chatbot in the Slack. But once you make that, you will get the Slack token and Slack channel, so you'll put it here. Now if everything is fixed, right, so we change to this one. Now let's run our server in the cell, and the way we can do is Rasa cell, and then you need to link the action server. So we have defined that thing, and we're gonna say endpoint what is endpoints.yml, and if the okay, so since we haven't made anything here where you have to call that action, right? Let's create one more path. So this seems right. Now let's go to one of this path, NLU, right? And let's say for this one, actually so you wanna say intent, what do you wanna call, say hello. Okay, no. So for that one, whatever we define action, how did that go? Stories domain action hello world, action hello world. So this is just a dummy example where it says, sometimes if people say Christmas, or Merry Christmas. I mean, in real life scenario, people will say, what is the address of this place, or those kind of things. But for now, we'll just do this one, and this will call action hello world. So we have defined in the domain, right, where like action hello world. And now let's go to the stories and create something, like some other story. So let's say say hello. So anytime if somebody says hello, then we'll call that action. So that would be a greet, right? And then auto greet, and then if somebody says action hello world, and then actually I think this will be a little confusing, so let's change this intent name to just say hello world. And then on the stories, once you find that somebody says say hello world, then you take the action of action hello world. Now, and make sure you define in the stories NLU and then domain. So for this one we have already here. So if everything, so now okay, so now let's again visualize this thing if that's included there. Okay, so there is some error found on tendency. So in the domain I didn't add in the intent, so go here and say hello world. Okay, and this visualizing thing is one of the good way to debug your program as well. I mean, there are ways, but okay, now see here, is it here? Yeah, so auto greet Christmas and and it goes to action hello world. And now, so let's train this model with the command Rasa train. Okay, once you train it, and then the initial command where Rasa cell endpoint dash endpoints.yml. So this is telling we are getting this endpoint and we are using this file. So now let's run this one, and now if I say hi, right, and then if I just say Christmas, it should say hello world. So does it make sense, like how we are connecting each piece with each other? Now, so for today's seminar I want to show you something that I haven't shown until now. So let me explain this one first. So for this kind of things we define individually, right? So what if we want to design a bot right now. This action.py we can think as a separate program just to access an API and return some values, right? But sometimes from your conversation there will be so much information that you need to use it and do some kind of calculations, right? So if you say, like, I will let's say this is the university billing chatbot where it says, like, I am a graduate student. The other thing can be, like, I am an undergraduate student. And let's assume that, like, graduate student fee and the undergraduate fee is different, right? So let's say this is $3,000 and this is undergraduate is, let's say, 1500. Now in this case we need to remember that, okay, this student is a graduate student, right? And this is a undergraduate student, right? Now one of the, in the spaceship I just showed how, things can be entities can be extracted, but now I can say this is, like, I can define this graduate as a, entity named classification, and this undergraduate as a classification. And in actions py, based on this classification, you are going to calculate the fee for this student, right? Now we can't solve this problem just by using the authored thing, right? Because there will be so many things, things will be stored in database, we need to access database and everything, right? So in that case you need to have information of everything. So basically, as I said earlier, in domain.yml, this is basically the whole world, right? Whatever the bot can handle, right? So in domain.yml we included intents, actions, templates, and one more thing we can include is slots. And what is slots? Slots is the memory of the bot. So I mean, I'll not show you this thing, but this is very important for the dialog management system as well. So now we have bot's memory, so undergraduate, and let's say there is one other thing that you are considering for calculation is whether you are a foreign, right, and domestic, because fee will depend on those kind of things, right? Domestic. So now we have two features for now, okay, for this bot. Now in slots you can see, for this one you can define this as nationality. So in slots you give this one, so this will be, one will be our classification and the other will be nationality or status, I would say. Let's say status, resident status. Okay. Now once you have this one, right, so in that action.py again you can use this one, but this all goes through with slots. So you will access these values of slots inside action.py, and based on that one you will calculate your value. Will not implement this today, but like, because there are other things we have to incorporate as well, and I need to
I mean, is there any way to define a, like, say, regular expression, like say I am a student. So what kind of student it should be inside, like say I am a graduate or undergraduate. There is no way to define regular expression such that it will generate a specific action or intent.
When you say
automatically.
regular expression, can you explain? I don't
Like
know that.
say I am a student. I am a dash then student.
Uh-huh.
So in the dash it will be graduate or undergraduate, and then you will pick that specific word, whether it is undergraduate or graduate. Then you will trigger that particular intent. Like say, so how are you trying to answer these questions? Like say for different kind of fees that you said. For graduation and one type of fees. So how are you trying to find the intent or status of user?
No, so the basic flow is, let's say for Sadiq, right? Okay. My bot is, let's say, I say hi, right? And then you, like, this is basically designed for the billing department. Okay. So the flow of conversation, I can control this one, right? So I can say, what is your classification, right? Is your classification. Now you have an option of saying, like I'm an international. I mean, like, what is the classification means? You define graduate or undergraduate, right? Or there is an option where you just say you present the option, like undergraduate, master, or PhD, right? Now from this one we will take these entities wherever I wrote. Okay, now I have this information. Now what's the next information I can get it? What is your residence status? Tell me if I didn't understand the question.
So it means the bot has to ask question to get the answer.
Yeah, exactly. Like for this kind of specific thing, it is better to be very specific and concrete on what you want to get it.
So the user is not that bot cannot get answer or from the just information, like I am graduate student, without asking any question first.
I am so you can do that one, but so whenever you define slots, you need to have complete information about all that thing, right? Or we can make assumption that we can initialize this one status as empty, right? And then when we do any kind of calculation, we only do calculation based on what we have. Let's say if you say I'm an international Texas resident, okay? Now from that information we can extract international, I'm a graduate, you have your entities for the classification, Texas resident, you have both information, right? But there will be time where people will, if you don't tell how they can reply or what to reply, right, they will type whatever they want, right? And we need to get that information. So in that case, if you say I'm a graduate Texas resident, right, now we need everything we have, but it's not guaranteed. So the better approach is just go step by step, even in when we do our class search, they will ask classifications and then 5,000 label, those kind of things, right? So that just helps to get our specific result. Other thing, you can just say, if you just give me these two information and which is not a good way to design a bot, but if you just say, I'm a student. Now what can you make sense of this one for the billing of your fees? This basically doesn't give us any information, right? Any specific information. So what I'm trying to say is, if you go to restaurant, right, if you just say I want food, right, waitress wouldn't know what kind of food, so she will follow up with other questions, drinks. Do you want tomato? Do you want olives? If you go to Subway, right? So we need to design in that way, and it really depends on our architecture.
I'm asking that why the bot cannot detect all the information from just one, one sentence.
Yeah, we can do that. Like
say, as you said that it's
Yeah.
kind of follow that, like asking each question, like initially
Yeah.
graduate, then
The thing is, it depends on how much information you are giving in one sentence. So if you are giving the entire
Yeah.
information in one sentence, it
So-
can do in one sentence. If you are giving it in parts, it will take, it has steps to even get the answer.
I mean, it seems like it's taking in parts, not as a whole.
Something, let me help to clarify on this one. Okay, in NLU.md, until now we have just included intent, right? But in the same data, what we can do is, if somebody says I am international, right? This is when we train the model, right? So for this international, this is our information, right? Now you can give this one as a classification. Okay, international, now graduate, this is residency, graduate is, now this is how you define in NLU.md. So graduate, and then you define what it is. So this is a classification. Okay, right? And then in your domain.yml, you will define slots, right? And then one is what is residency, which will be a text, right? And which will be typed text, right? And then so here, let's follow this one. So now you define residency, now you defined classification. So these are two different entities, right? Now you say type equals to text. Now going back to your question, I think it should be value. I'm not sure, but whatever it is. So going back to your question, if you give me this sentence, right? Now in my domain.yml, this value will be initialized as a graduate, and the other value will be initialized as international.
Okay, Sanjay, we use these slots in the action.py to calculate, for example, the tuition, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you have any sample for action.py?
Not that one.
Okay. Can you send me can you share the sample of the action.py for using slots to calculate the tuition, for example?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sorry, guys, I have to go now. You guys can continue discussion if you have more questions, right? Okay. Okay, good job, Sanjay. It was very good seminar.
Something, did I make you clear, or are you still confused? We can.
Yeah, so I got this two idea. Then what will happen? What intent it will generate from?
No,
here?
this is intent is this sentence we can classify this. This all depends on us. Okay, so now how you wanna give a second. How you wanna define this? What can you say? Like whenever you say intent, think this as the summary of the sentence. So what can you say? Like I'm an international resident graduate student. What? Anything, right? Intent. Let's say the we can say this as
Introduction.
bill info. That's how it all depends on how we want to design it. There is no like specific rules while using this Rasa. I mean, like there are Facebook frameworks, those kind of things where you need to follow their design, how you want to include, right? Even in that space, like it says name equals to something, but that's kind of universal thing. But for this one, we will design it how we want to call it. Any more question? All right, thank you so much. Once I finish that action.py, because there are other things I need to include, like like how to handle everything. So I didn't like I need to write that part.
Could you just say that terminal thing?